The night it broke wasn't anything special, just a Wednesday in February, plain and cold, with the kind of stillness that gets into your bones. I cooked her favorite, smoked pork tenderloin, roasted carrots, sourdough I'd baked the night before. I set the table like it mattered. Jenna walked in around 8:40, her eyes scanning the room like she'd just stepped into a crime scene. The candles flickered between us, their light making everything feel fragile. She looked at me, at the table, and then back at me, like she was deciding whether to laugh or cry. Finally, she just said, "What's this?" I said, "Dinner, yours." Her face twisted, disgusted. "I'm not sleeping with you anymore. You disgust me. I can't even stand looking at you. Deal with it." She said it flat, like a business transaction. I didn't shout, didn't throw a plate. I just nodded. You know that feeling when a doctor gives you bad news and you don't even flinch? That's what it felt like. Something that was coming for a long time, only now it had a name. I said, "Okay," and walked to the spare room, the one that had slowly become mine, without either of us ever saying it out loud. She didn't stop me, didn't ask me to stay. She wanted me to beg, I know that. But I didn't. There was a time when she'd leave little notes in my lunch bag. "Level up today," or a goofy doodle of me with a tape measure like a cowboy lasso. A time when I'd bring her coffee just the way she liked it. Extra hot, oat milk, cinnamon on top, and she'd kiss my cheek before we went to work. Somewhere around year 12, it all shrank. The jokes got meaner, the affection dried up, and I convinced myself it was just us settling into age, into routine. But when you cook a meal, your wife looks at you like you're a joke, and then she says the quiet part out loud. That's when you stop lying to yourself. I didn't want to deal with it, but I did. That night, I sat at the kitchen island I built with my own hands, wobbly but solid, and I told myself, "All right, Russ." She said to deal with it, so deal with it. It didn't start with the sentence. It started with the small dodges. Jenna eased out of reach first. No more hand on my shoulder in the grocery line. No more legs tucked under mine on the couch during those Sunday games. She started calling our bedroom my room, and the guest room your space, like we were housemates. I went along because men my age tend to go along until they can't. Work talk used to be a two-way street. She'd unload about vendors who couldn't hit deadlines, and I'd tell her about the sink that fought me, or the inspector who found one extra thing. Then it turned into one-word answers. "Fine, busy." I'd catch her eye, but she'd already be back on her phone, scrolling like it had more right to her than I did. I started noticing it more. A name kept showing up. Tyler. At first it seemed innocent. Tyler thinks the Q3 rollout needs a punchier angle. Tyler's pushing for a new brand voice. Nothing I hadn't heard before. The usual work talk. Just a new name thrown in. But it kept coming. Then it was dinners to talk strategy, early morning wellness events, a 10K charity run she never trained for but had to attend because Tyler registered the team. I told myself I was overthinking it, but the changes followed fast. New gym gear, top shelf. A haircut every 2 weeks from a salon that charged like it came with a diploma. Skin serums lined up like a flight crew on the bathroom counter. And that perfume, sharp, expensive, something I'd never smelled before. It didn't sit right. Dresses with tags from stores I'd only seen when I drove past. Her schedule started slipping to later nights. We're closing a sponsorship. We're fixing a crisis. We're celebrating the campaign. She'd come home late, her shoulders tense, her eyes on the floor. She'd hit the shower the second she came in, toss her clothes in the hamper like evidence, then lock her door. More than once I caught a faint cologne that wasn't mine. Some clean ocean scent that 20-somethings love. I tried to ignore it, told myself I was being paranoid, but the scent followed her into the house like a shadow I couldn't shake. I thought about it a lot. Too much, probably, but I tried one last push. I booked a weekend out by the river in early May, 2 nights at a lodge with a wood-fired sauna and a slow diner across the street. Nothing fancy, just quiet. I told her 6 weeks ahead of time. I thought we could reconnect, maybe find some space to talk. She canceled 40 hours before we were supposed to leave, said the new VP had a brand summit. I let the deposit go, told myself I was being silly, looked in the mirror, saw an older guy with a dusting of drywall on his boots and thought, maybe you're the problem. That thought stuck with me. It stuck like a nail you can't pry out clean. I didn't say it to anybody then. I just held it, and it burned. After her deal with it, I drank bad coffee at 3:10 a.m. and made a list. Step 1, stop guessing. Step 2, protect myself. Step 3, decide later whether to burn it down or walk away silent. It wasn't a big list, just a few things to hold on to. Because when everything feels like it's sliding, sometimes you need to grab something solid. I called my brother Nolan at 6:45 a.m. He's direct, 2 years younger, runs a tow yard, doesn't bother with niceties. You want comfort, call Camille, he said, his voice raspy from sleep. You want a plan? You called me. Start with the paper. I didn't hesitate. We had a post-nup, not my idea. 11 years in, when Jenna got a small inheritance from her grandmother and her parents bought a lake cabin, her folks pushed it. Just standard, her mom Barbara said at the time, smiling tight. Protects both of you. I signed it on a Thursday in April back then, thinking it was just a precaution, nothing I'd ever need to think about. But now the thought of it felt different. I needed to see it again. I pulled it out of the safe that morning, the cheap metal one I bolted to the basement studs, and flipped through it until my eyes hit Section 8. Infidelity. Any party proven by preponderance of evidence to have committed adultery shall waive claims to marital residence equity, accrued post-execution, and spousal support. Separate property remains separate. My hands went steady as I read it twice. The weight of it sank into my chest. I took pictures of each page, sent them to Nolan. He called back, sounding like he was chewing something. "Buddy, that's a gift," he said, his voice muffled. "You get proof she walks from the house and support. You keep your truck, your tools, your shop. Don't you dare tip your hand." I opened the joint credit card statements next. I never paid much attention to them before. Jenna handled most of the bills, auto payments, online stuff. But now I needed to see it. Printed 6 months worth. Got a highlighter. There it was. Lamplight Bistro, $224. On a Tuesday she worked late. The Palomar Hotel, $312, 2 Fridays after our canceled river trip. The Dash, a rooftop bar I only knew from neighborhood gossip, $146, a Thursday she claimed was a brand dinner. Roses and Vine, $96 for flowers I never saw. Blue and Sterling, a boutique, $618. My mind went straight to jewelry. Where else does that total land? I made a folder on my laptop, named it decking_quotes_Q2, because I know what files never get opened. Screenshotted every line, sorted by date, matched each charge to her texts saying, "Running late, eat without me." I stared at the house deed, the tool inventory ledger I keep for insurance. My crew depends on me. My jobs depend on me. I wasn't going to go sleep in my truck because my wife met a guy with a title and a hollow grin. I put the post-nut back in the safe, closed it soft, and said out loud, "To nobody. All right, I'm handling it." The tablet sat there, still warm from the last time she used it. It was just another piece of the routine, recipes, ball games, whatever. But that night, it felt like fate. Jenna kept her company email logged in, no passcode. She liked things quick, and tonight, I was quick. I opened the browser, went to cloud backups. The Photos app had auto sync on, and I scrolled through, expecting the usual, whiteboards, leggings, flat lays of sports bras for her team's social posts. But then, there were a handful from hotel bars. Low light, a cocktail with a branded stir stick. A reflection in the window behind her glass. Him. I zoomed in, my thumb steady, and there he was. Jawline like he'd grown it on purpose. A blazer over a fitted tee, that clean, sharp haircut. Tyler. I swiped to the messages. That's where the jackpot was. Her iMessage was signed in. T, are we on for Saturday? Room's booked. J, can't stop thinking about last night. T, she's still clueless? J, he doesn't ask. He just cooks and fades into the furniture. T, we'll fix that soon. I froze, then scrolled back through the charges I'd highlighted. I saved the screenshots. Location pings lined up with the hotels I already had. Palomar, River Point, and that was enough. I set my phone down, felt the anger rise, then slide away. From hot to cold. Cold is useful. Cold lets you think, and I was thinking. I went to my streaming accounts and changed the passwords. The Gym Family add-on I'd been paying for. The Spotify we'd shared since 2011. It didn't take long. She texted me within an hour. Why can't I log in? I let it sit there for a minute. Then I replied, "You said I discussed you. Didn't think you'd want my playlists." She called right after that. I let it ring out. She came home early that night, around 9:50. She didn't knock, just pushed my door open. "Why are you being petty?" she asked, standing in the doorway, her arms crossed. I closed the laptop slow, took my time, looked at her, really looked at her. Because I know about Tyler. Hotels, dinners, River Point 903. Her face went paper white. She took a step back, like the words had pushed her, like she couldn't get any air. "You, what?" I didn't raise my voice. I just held up the tablet. The screenshots were clear, cold, and final. She reached for the oldest defense in the book. "You were never present, Russ. You don't understand me." I didn't flinch. I kept my voice steady. "I understand receipts. And I understand the postnup you insisted on. Remember Section 8? Her breath caught, and for a second, I thought she might try to deny it. But she didn't. She just exhaled, a long, heavy sigh like she'd been holding a balloon in her chest for months, and turned to leave. The door shut behind her, and that was it, the end of that phase. I hired a lawyer the next morning, Colleen Dwyer. Mid-40s, sharp eyes, speaks like she bills by the breath. $575 an hour, $8,000 retainer, worth it. I slid the postnup across her desk, then the receipts and the screenshots. She organized them in seconds, nodding like she'd seen this movie too many times. "We'll file on fault under the clause, request exclusive use of the marital residence, and serve her at work. Clean, quick, controlled." "At work?" I asked. She didn't blink. She decided to make this public when she spent joint funds publicly and left a paper trail. Serving at home invites a scene. Serving at work invites reality. I signed the petition papers. My hand didn't shake. Service went out 2 days later, Friday at 10:22 a.m. Jenna texted me 30 seconds after the clerk stamped the filing. "What is this? Are you insane? How dare you humiliate me?" I didn't answer. I laid tile on a laundry room floor and let the trowel do the talking. Every scrape of the edge against the grout, the slow grind of the blade, felt better than anything I could say to her. At 1:05 p.m., Barbara called. She didn't say hello, just launched in. "How dare you?" she snapped, her voice tight, like a piano wire pulled too far. "You're ruining Jenna's life over a misunderstanding." I let the silence sit for a second, then said, "She's been meeting a guy named Tyler at hotels and towers 3 nights a week since late March." The misunderstanding ended when she opened the door. Barbara didn't argue. She did the usual, talked about how I had let myself go, how I wasn't ambitious, how I never fit their world. I let her run out of words, then said, "I'm texting you something." I sent the screenshots, the ledger, the postnup clause circled in blue. She hung up without another sound. At 6:30 p.m., Jenna's father, Tom, texted. I told her to sign. That's all. No long speeches, no drama. Men his age, they understand consequences more than excuses. Jenna, though, wasn't done. At 8:12 p.m., I saw her pull into the driveway. I watched her through the kitchen window as she got out of the car, her slippers scraping the concrete. She walked up to the door like she still had a place in this house. I opened it just enough to see her face. "We can fix this if you stop right now," she said, her voice cracking a little, like she thought I might cave if she showed enough of the old hurt. I didn't budge. I wasn't going to. I opened the door just enough for my foot to block it. "No," I said. "You told me I discussed you. I'm just helping you get what you wanted." Her face crumpled, but she didn't say anything else. She turned around slowly, like every step out of the house was a little more of her, leaving me behind. I closed the door, watched her silhouette slump in the window glass as she left. The settlement conference happened 3 weeks later. Her attorney, a talker named Jared Reese, came in swinging, claimed the postnup was unconscionable, claimed I had emotionally abandoned the marriage, and said the screenshots were taken out of context. Colleen didn't raise her voice once. She slid in the notarized postnup with independent counsel for both sides, email chains proving Jenna's meetings lined up with hotel charges, and a tidy spreadsheet matching every text to a transaction. Jenna stared at me like she was waiting for the old Russ, the one who avoided conflict, to take over. I didn't look back long. The mediator was marking up the whiteboard, quiet as he worked. The result was clean and final. I kept the house and the shop, my retirement account I'd been feeding since I was 28, my truck and my tools. No spousal support either way, per the clause. She took her separate inheritance and her car. We split the joint checking. Not much in there after a month of me siphoning cash into a new account, in amounts like $1,150 and $420. Small enough to go unnoticed, big enough to give me room to breathe. The papers got signed. Her pen shook a little. Part of me, the idiot part, the part that still remembers flea markets and her laughing at how I haggled on a busted lamp, felt a tug. But then I remembered the River Lodge deposit, the smell of a stranger's cologne in my hallway at 12:40 a.m. The tug died. I initialed the last page. A week later, word hit me through a guy I know who handles IT at her building. Tyler had been moved, not fired. These guys rarely fall that far, but moved sideways to a region where they put people they're done with. Turns out, their VP of brand was married and not amused by two of his direct reports spraying their mess on company time. Jenna stayed, but her fast track cooled. That wasn't my doing. That was gravity. She didn't go quiet, though. She started running into me at places I always went. Ace Hardware on 19th, the coffee place where I get dark roast and stale biscotti, even outside a job site one morning at 6:50 a.m. "We should talk," she kept saying. I said, "We did." I heard all I needed. But she didn't get the hint. She followed my truck to Nolan's place one afternoon, parked across the street for an hour, just sitting there, watching. That was the last straw. I filed a report. The judge granted a temporary protective order. 100 yards, no contact, no third-party messages. At the hearing, the judge looked over his glasses and said, "Mrs. Hale, leave him be." For once, she didn't argue. She signed the acknowledgement with a mouth like a straight line. No fight, no words. Just a resignation that told me everything I needed to know. The house felt different once the papers were final, and her perfume faded from the vents. It wasn't dramatic, nothing like a scene in a movie, but the change was real, quiet, in a way that made you notice how loud it had been before. First thing I did was take the door off that spare room and hang it as a sliding barn door in the kitchen. Stubborn lumber, but it turned out clean. The kind of thing I could have asked Jenna's opinion on before, but now it was just me. I moved my tools out of the dining room and turned the old office into a decent drafting space. I even bought a real stool that didn't kill my back after an hour. Work snapped into focus. I started bidding smarter, turning down headaches and landing jobs that paid steady. A church hall remodel for 11 weeks, and a porch rebuild for a retired couple who fed my whole crew blueberry pie every Friday. I stopped bleeding time to fights and second-guessing. My phone wasn't buzzing with nonsense anymore. Quiet is a tool. It lets you think, lets you breathe. I adopted a dog, a 5-year-old black and tan mutt from the county shelter, with a scar over one eye and a one ear up, one ear down face. They called him Hank. I didn't know it at the time, but we'd both been waiting on each other. The first night, he circled twice, flopped by the couch, and snored like a tired uncle. That sound, deep, steady, did more for my heart than any speech. I didn't need therapy when I had Hank. He didn't ask for anything but a scratch behind the ears, and that was enough. But Camille kept dragging me to a therapist. Dr. Talbot, mid-60s, cardigan, hands like he'd dug gardens. First session, I told him, "I don't want to talk feelings." He just looked at me and said, "Then talk facts." So I did. Week after week, we talked about work, about the house, about the things I could control. After a few sessions, I could finally tell the difference between guilt I'd earned and guilt handed to me, like a bill for a meal I didn't order. That one took a while to figure out. I got back in the gym, not to chase youth, just to make my shoulders stop burning after I lifted cabinets. 3 mornings a week, 25 minutes of rowing, some farmer carries, a few planks. No one cheered. It wasn't about that. My shirts fit better, though, and my sleep got thicker, like it belonged to me again. I started eating off a plate at a table instead of out of the pan over the sink. Small victories. But they meant something. I went to my nephew Eli's wedding in early fall, watched him tear up when his bride walked down the aisle. For one beat, my chest pulled tight. The DJ played our old song by accident, and I didn't know if it was the music or the memories that stung. But it passed. Danny, a woman I knew from the lumberyard, sat next to me at dinner. We talked about wood prices, not romance. When she asked if I wanted to grab a burger the next week, I said yes. Then later texted to make it clear I move slow. She texted back, Slow is better than stupid. Fair enough, I don't believe in scorched earth. I believe in consequences showing up like daylight, inevitable and not negotiable. The first one came when Jenna's mother called me again, voice soft this time, like she was testing the waters. "I was hard on you," she said. "I didn't know the half of it. I didn't sugarcoat it. You knew plenty, you just didn't want to see it." She didn't argue. Next came a note in my mailbox with handwriting I knew, like my own, Jenna's. "I'm sorry," it said. "I was angry at you for not being what I wanted, and too weak to say what I did want. I hope you're okay." I didn't reply. Apology is a currency best spent on the person you damaged. Mine went into a drawer and stayed there. There wasn't anything to add, nothing that would fix it or make it easier. Just words. And words weren't going to make a difference now. Tyler showed up at one of my job sites once. I have no idea how he found it. He tried an apology for his share of the mess. I cut him off before he could finish. "You don't owe me words," I said. "You owe yourself a look in the mirror." He stood there for a second, like he was still trying to process that. Then he nodded, like he was trying on humility for the first time. "She told me you were cold," he said. "Turns out you were just steady." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. He left with his hands jammed in his pockets, his nice shoes dirty from the gravel in the lot. The last payback, if you want to call it that, happened at Ace Hardware. I was in the middle of a job, picking up some lumber when the cashier asked how I'd been. "Better," I said. He smirked a little, like he knew something I didn't. "Heard your ex shows up here to ask about you." I just shrugged, and the words came out without thinking. "Clerks aren't therapists," I said. "Point her to aisle 10. We both laughed a little. That was enough. Public humiliation wasn't the point. Public indifference was. I wasn't trying to make her feel anything anymore. I was done with that. In court, the judge finalized everything with a stamp that sounded like a gavel in a movie. "Mrs. Hale," he said, "adhere to the order." She nodded, her eyes fixed somewhere past my shoulder, like she wasn't even looking at me anymore. I didn't bother to look for regret on her face. People see what they want. I'd spent years doing that. I was done. On the way home, I stopped by the feed store and picked up a brisket from the guy who smokes meats under a blue pop-up tent. I fed my crew in the shop. Hank patrolled for scraps. After we swept the sawdust, I sat on the tailgate in the late sun, quiet in my bones. I wake up early now because I want to, not because the room is tense. The house sounds like a house again, HVAC humming in the background, Hank's claws tapping down the hall, the low buzz of the fridge I keep meaning to replace. I drink my coffee on the porch I rebuilt last summer and watch the neighborhood start up. Across the street, Mrs. Alvarez waters her tomatoes exactly like a ritual, one slow sweep of the hose at a time. It's ordinary, and ordinary. Ordinary is underrated. People ask what happened with my marriage. I don't give them a speech. I say, we went different ways. If they push and they've earned it, I tell them the truth, no spice. She cheated, I proved it. We had a post-nup. I kept the house. She kept what was hers, and that was that. There's nothing heroic in it. It's just a man not lighting himself on fire to keep someone else warm. I still think about the night she told me I disgusted her. Not because it hurts now, but because it was the first honest thing she'd said in a long time. It cut me loose. I stopped begging for approval I'd never get and started putting my time into things that answer back with results. Square corners, a dog who comes when I call, a body that can still carry drywall up a flight of stairs without complaining more than necessary. Danny and I get burgers sometimes. We don't talk about forever. We talk about supply chain delays and which football team is going to break hearts next. Maybe it goes somewhere, maybe it doesn't. I'm not using romance as a life raft. I'm using it like dessert. Nice to have, not required. If you're wondering about revenge, mine wasn't a grand gesture. It was practical. A clause enforced, a door rekeyed, a service of papers done in daylight, a steady refusal to let someone else's chaos set my schedule. She learns to live with the job she kept and the home she lost. I learned to live with quiet and the fact that I made it to the other side without becoming mean. I'm not proud of everything. I wish I'd spoken up earlier. I wish I hadn't tried to fix a leak by repainting the wall, but I kept my head when it counted. She told me to deal with it, so I did. And every time I set a screw that sits just right, every time Hank drops his tennis ball in my lap and looks up like the world's okay, I think. Good enough, Russ. That's my ending. Not dramatic, not loud. Mine.